What I'm going to do is introduce the leaders of the two teams and ask them, first of all, to talk, to introduce the members of their team, and also to talk a bit about the demographics and the circumstances of their district. So I'd first like to introduce Lillian Maldonado-French, who's the superintendent in Mountain View, and ask her to introduce her team.
Great. Good morning, everyone. As I said, my name is Lillian Maldonado-French. I'm the superintendent of Mountain View School District, and here with me today is Darin Knikker. He's our acting assistant superintendent of Ed Services. Andry, principal of Crans Intermediate School. Priscilla Figueroa, she's a 5th grade teacher at Parkview Elementary, and Lillie Rubalcaba, she's a 3rd grade teacher at Voorhees Elementary. So this is our team. You want to know a little bit about ourselves? Okay. We're a K-8 district here in Los Angeles County in the southeast corner of the San Gabriel Valley. We have 7,500 students, 12 schools. We have 95% free and reduced lunch. About 60% of our students are English learners. We're a community with challenges, but we're a community filled with high capital and wonderful people who are interested in making great changes in our community. You want me to tell you a little bit about?
No, we'll go on to that in a moment. I'll introduce Long Beach now. Okay, so and I'd like to introduce Jill Baker, who is the assistant superintendent for elementary and K-8 schools and the chief academic officer in Long Beach.
Thank you. We're glad to be here. Participating in a panel like this always causes us a lot of reflection and opportunity to really think about our work and sharing it with you. So to my right is Director of Curriculum, Instruction, and Professional Development, and also our Program Assistants for Language Minority Students, Pamela Seki. Lisa Worsham, to her right, K-5 ELA and ELD Curriculum Leader. And to her right, Maria Yepez, 4th grade teacher leader, who will share several different aspects of her classroom work as well as her participation in many of our district teacher leadership opportunities. And our district is about 82,000 students. Approximately 25% of those students are English language learners, and about 2/3 of them are receive free and reduced lunch. We have about 82 schools, 44 elementary, 9 K-8, 15 middle schools, and 12 high schools, 3 of which are small high schools, 3 are alternative, and then 6 are comprehensive high schools. And I guess many of the same things about our district. We have a long history of a focus on professional development for teachers and principals that we've really been able to customize and to think differently about in the age of Common Core implementation. And when I think about our work, I think about not only transformation of teaching and learning, but also the opportunity that we hope to share with you today that's about the transformation of how we do our work in the district in this era of Common Core implementation. As many of you know, you're here because this work is hard, it's messy, it requires a different kind of thinking, and so one of the things I know we all want to be able to share is that while there are things that we feel really successful in, there are things that we're really working hard to improve upon. And we hope you hear that place in this journey in our conversation today, too.
Okay, thank you very much. And I hope you'll forgive me if I use your first names, if that's, is that okay? Okay. So Lillian, I'd like you to talk a little bit about the district's vision and how Common Core implementation fits into that.
Well, it fits in beautifully because our philosophy to school improvement is truly a systems approach that is best described by glowing slow and going deep. So what you'll hear today is many of the strategies that you heard earlier in the PowerPoint, and maybe perhaps in how a small school district manages those changes. And our journey to Common Core really began 5 years ago because we partnered with Dr. Robin LaSalle from Principals Exchange Foundation and really began aligning our curriculum towards an entire system approach that really was based on the premise that teachers and not a program held the key to student learning. And so we really focused on a more autonomous view of curriculum design.
Great. And Jill, do you want to take the same question?
Sure. So our district has a strategic plan. It's in its second 5-year iteration, which really gives the foundation for our Common Core implementation. There's a clear focus in the strategic plan on college and career readiness. We have a board-approved a student graduate profile. And so our work really emanates from the belief and our belief in a systems approach of a system of excellent schools that are all striving towards readying students for the world of college and career. I think just to give a bit of the timeline today, we'll talk about really a 4-year progression, 2011-12, really around an awareness campaign to think about transformation of all of the systems in the district and help people to understand what will happen in Common Core implementation. It's when our steering committees formed and when we started to map out who will do what aspect of work in Common Core implementation. We spent last year in a huge effort to help teachers and principals and district staff really understand the instructional shifts necessary. Different than going into standards first, we really spent time focused on instructional shifts in professional development for principals, professional development for teachers, and also professional development for district leaders. This year, our work has really been about system-wide implementation of the standards themselves and mapping on what we call transitions in pedagogy. We come from a very prescriptive essential elements of effective instruction foundation, really 20-plus years of having a common aspect of pedagogy that's K-12 in our system. And while that has been effective and will continue to be effective in many environments, one of the things that we knew is that we needed to make some shifts in the kinds of lessons that teachers were teaching, a look at the understanding by design way of looking at curriculum, and make those transitions. And so this year our efforts have been really around how to transition pedagogical strategies in classrooms. And next year, heading into new district assessments, one of the things that we did to create an environment of experimentation is we suspended 2 things. One is our K-5 report cards became progress reports. And secondly, we suspended all of our district, well, I should say almost all of our district assessments. We have a couple of assessments that are anchored in our promotion retention policy, which remained, but all of the other typical quarter exams and trimester tests we suspended so that teachers really felt a sense of opportunity to experiment in their classroom without so many of the assessment practices that were no longer aligned to what we were implementing in terms of curriculum and instruction. So we hope that you'll hear more about that story as you listen in. Shall I share a few just milestones?
Sure.
Okay. And I think, and Brent talked a little bit about this in terms of our work, but places to hear us as we think aloud with you today that are milestones for us. One is a huge effort at collaboration between our curriculum, instruction, and assessment design work and the supervision and support to school principals. And we think of that juncture as the way that we've operationalized and really watched the implementation aspect of work. And I think it's that interdependence that hopefully you'll hear in many of the things that we talk about, that we know that we could have the best materials and curriculum, the most perfectly designed lessons for teachers to use, or we could also have principals that, from a different perspective, were really trained in looking at student work or observing a teacher teach a lesson. But it is the point where these 2 things come together in our worlds in Long Beach that we've really found just beauty in the work of how we both look at things that we're aiming towards these common goals. We see them from different perspectives, but when we talk about implementation, this has really been, the last couple of years, I'd say, really been the crux of change and transformation in our work. So we hope you'll hear that as our story. What that looks like are things like we facilitate a implementation steering committee. There's one for K-8 and one for high school implementation. Those are half curriculum staff and half school supervisor staff talking together about what implementation looks like. We use a common walkthrough process, elementary, middle, and K-8, and then one that's separate for high school. It's aligned to teacher professional development so that when we're out looking in classrooms, it's not a random arrow. It's not what a principal, him or herself, wants to look at. It's aligned to the sequence of professional development. And then we're looking together at what implementation looks like in a classroom. You'll hear about whole district engagement and really the strategic thinking about mapping of responsibilities. So if we're going to directly engage teachers in a certain kind of learning, what that would mean for a principal, and then who will provide certain aspects of professional development at the district level and at the site level. So many aspects of our work that we feel have transformed the way that we think and transformed the systems that we use in our district.
Okay. Thank you for that. So, as you all know, vision is a great thing, but the teachers actually have to do the work. Mm-hmm. And so, Priscilla and Lillie, to talk a little bit about what this looks like from the teacher's perspective in Mountain View.
Well, I don't know. Am I loud enough? Yeah. Okay. As teachers, we were invited to participate in as teacher leads. We kind of self-selected ourselves. Whoever wanted to participate in the teacher lead positions could. It's been an open policy, and we've gone from learning about the Common Core for a couple of years now, learning about what was coming up, and now moving towards creating curriculum maps and pacing charts and looking at what that might look like, taking a look at practice assessments from the SBAC. Some of us were able to participate in the actual writing of SBAC items through the state. So bringing back that knowledge and now working with teams to actually create pacing charts and the actual assessments and what that would look like. We are in the beginning stages of that right now, so that in turn comes back to the classroom, really looking at backward design and noting what are the expectations with the Common Core, and bringing that back with our practices that are already in place and changes that we feel we need to make.
If I could continue on with that line of thought. Over the past 5 years, Mountain View has worked closely with Dr. Robin LaSalle from Principals Exchange in providing professional development opportunities for our administrators first, and then our educators, partnering with them in the area of curriculum alignment. So over the past 5 years, we began work when money was scarce in the state, we know that, and we were fortunate to have a new superintendent come on to Team Mountain View with a vision, and she had a mission. And she wrote grants for us to begin to have summer week-long institutes for teachers to participate in this curriculum alignment to the old state standards, where we designed our year-long maps by grade level, by school site. So it was very specific to the needs of our students based on the data from the CST at the time. Based on that, we looked at where our strengths were for our students and our needs. We developed our unit assessments, and then we backwards mapped, kind of like the Wiggins and McTighe model, where we came up with essential agreements for each unit on strategies that we were to implement, and then reflect on the data by grade levels during those grade level articulation meetings. Last year, this past summer, we took those standards, and lead teachers came together in the summer and morphed those year-long plans to the Common Core standards. We saw that there was a lot that we were already doing, and we merely needed to fill in some gaps where standards had moved to other grade levels. Again, as Priscilla had stated, the district has been very open in inviting teachers to become teacher leads or lead learners along with the principals. And it has really been very considerate, I think. Our transition has been very considerate of the entire educational community in Mountain View, where principals have been learning along with us. So we're all learning together. And as the messages are coming down through the pipe, we are also inviting our parents to learn along with us as we're learning with the students. We still have our unit assessments, but we have morphed them to Common Core assessments, where we have embedded constructed response writing into each of our assessments, and we still look at it. But because there isn't such an emphasis on the state test, teachers feel safe to try new strategies such as the guided reading, word work with emphasis on Greek and Latin roots, the phonics, what are they called? Interactive notebooks have been great. Principals use them, teachers use them at all their meetings, students are using them to study on the playground, and parents are using them in their meetings. So a lot of the strategies that we've been trained on over the past 5 years are very Common Core compatible strategies that teachers are feeling very comfortable with. So I think that the operative word in our district is safe. We feel safe to try new things. We feel safe sharing with each other. Principals come in to observe our lessons. We go and observe other teachers' lessons, and it's a wonderful learning process that we've engaged in over the past 5 years.
Great, thank you. And Maria Yepez, you can probably feel this question coming to you, so I'll give you the next word.
Well, just to add on to Jill's comments about what's happening at the district level, where the principals are being trained in the transitions of the pedagogy, they're providing staff development to us, but also with the collaborative walkthroughs, teacher leaders or lead teachers are invited to go to these walkthroughs. That way principals and teachers collaborate on what's working in our schools and what we're seeing in other schools. With the curriculum offices, we do believe in the trainer-of-trainer lead teacher model, where we are provided the staff development from the staff from curriculum offices. Then we go back to our sites where we teach our teachers as well as our parents. The design of our ELA units and our math units are developed with the curriculum leaders that Ms. Lisa will talk about later, but also with working with teachers, and it gives us that buy-in. And what's unique about LBUSD is that we are building the capacity within our teachers with the trainer-of-trainer models. With that, we're going back to our sites, we're collaborating with our principals, we're planning together. We have a district planning time at each site, and our sites are providing grade level release time so that we can collaborate by sharing our assessments and planning our next We to add on to the fact that this is change. We need a lot of flexibility. We are challenged to take risks. It's a journey. We're making those mistakes, and thus leading to what Jill mentioned about the district progress reports. It was a result of teacher input by our teacher council. They initiated the move towards this progress report because we said we need to have a supportive learning environment, and so we're focusing on change. We're focusing on embracing the change, and the focus is on the process.
Great, thanks. As Mike Kirst mentioned in the video, the state did provide $1.25 billion to support Common Core, and many of us hope that they'll provide some additional resources in the coming year. How has Mountain View thought about the allocation of those resources between materials, technology, and professional development?
Well, I think for Mountain View, we really looked at, what was our needs at this moment. And our needs really have fallen into continue the professional development. We've looked at, not only as has been shared, as our administrators have been doing, ongoing professional development now for over 4 years actually. And along with that, a lot of the Common Core-like strategies that we are also using in the classroom, administrators are getting up front. So we've been using some of that money, obviously, to train our administrators, also with our teacher leads that we're using this money, and other professional developments. We've had 2 summer institutes on Common Core and looking at what those changes would be, where the shifts are in the standards-based alignment process, as well as what strategies. And from that, developing what we call our framework, our Common Core compatible framework of strategies and instruction that we use. So our money has been used in a lot of training in those areas. We're also developing what we call our resource steering committees. So looking at the realization that textbook adoption is moving with math. ELA, we're looking probably, from what I've heard, the fall of 2015. So in the meantime, our emphasis has really been going back to the report that we heard regarding the issues of concern. One of them had to do with resources and materials. Knowing that those materials would not necessarily be available, we decided that we would use our experts within our own district, and we would pull those people together, and we would use their knowledge of the standards, their knowledge of curriculum, and what we have and what they're using to bring together that team as our resource steering committee. And those individuals are working to provide resources to our unit designs for our Common Core. And so at this point, we're hoping that some of this money will yet be able to be used for technology. But the reality is, even though we're very pleased with the amount of money that we did receive from the state, the technology needs are great. And at this point, our biggest focus is going to be on classroom instruction and lesson design for children, and so that's where our money is focused.
Great, thank you. And same question to Long Beach?
In Long Beach, we have pushed out a great deal of the Common Core funding to the sites for local control over that professional development, the technology infrastructure, and instructional materials. Our emphasis has been around getting our schools ready technology-wise. So we have installed 107 labs across our schools, and to operationalize those labs, because they were beautiful and teachers and students were looking at them, but they weren't being used. So we created what we're calling navigational skills lessons, which are daily lessons that focus on providing students access to the Smarter Balanced Assessment, as well as a keyboarding program. So we've provided those daily lesson plans to our teachers, provided training to our teachers, but most importantly, we've posted them on the internet and have reached out to parents so that they can continue that work at home with their students. And it also gives the parents an idea of the depth of knowledge that students will need to demonstrate on the Smarter Balanced Assessments. Our professional development has been highly targeted toward building the capacity of our teachers in the classroom, as well as that of our principals as instructional leaders, as my colleagues have described. We repurposed our instructional materials, our previous adopted materials, and wrote our own curriculum, scope and sequence, and unit guides using those materials. We didn't feel that commercially there were products available for us yet, and we really wanted to maintain the scaffolds that are a part of our daily work and the use of, for example, thinking maps. And so by writing our own curriculum, we were able to incorporate that, our tiered instruction that provides scaffolds for English learners and students with special needs. We have really focused on using a collaborative inquiry process, which brings together the work of the professional development by having site visits where principals will walk their site with a visiting principal, lead teachers from their site as well as other sites, be able to really explore what's happening and provide feedback that goes back to our implementation steering committees, which then in turn informs the professional development that we're able to provide.
Great, thanks. And Raymond, Andry, a lot of people have mentioned principals. Principals are clearly at the center of a lot of this work. How does this look from your point of view?
I think our superintendent, really did have the wisdom 5 years to start off by starting professional development with principals and administrators first. A year before we rolled out to our teachers, we went through the same process that we were going to take them through the prior year. And the expectation was not only did we know it, we'd be able to do it. There were times where we had to present demo lessons in front of other principals of the same things that we were going to then go back and train our teachers in. And what we started off with was a process of curriculum alignment where we created unit assessments, and that led into a process of data reflection. Our data reflection protocol is we meet with teachers and their teams about every 25 days after instruction, and we disaggregate student data by looking at our subgroups, our English learners, our students with disabilities, our entire student population, and we talk about students by name. And we practiced this an entire year with our principal teams prior to implementation. So by the time it came time for rollout, and we were facilitating with our staff, we were very clear on the process and the expectation for us was very clear of what we were supposed to do. Another huge help has been, we call it taco teams. And the premise is if you eat together, you hang out together, you work together, the work goes deeper and it goes further. So principals are in PLCs or taco teams, and we're in groups, and we do joint walkthroughs of each other's school. And we have, for elementary and secondary, really a one-page instructional framework and Common Core plan that talks about the common strategies throughout the district, including interactive notebooks, structured think, pair, shares, using reflection with students in their note-taking process. And all of those things we choose as principals that we go out and monitor. And we also allow the same opportunities for our staff. One thing is the expectation, and one thing is what we do is at our staff meetings, if we present something, for example, we presented child abuse this year, which is a thrilling, riveting concept to go over. It was presented through an structural framework. And so as you're practicing these strategies at staff meetings and opening of the school year, it really reinforces and shows to teachers that any concept that you have to learn, there's a Mountain View way. And the Mountain View way offers you a great deal of flexibility in how to do it, but we do have some basic premises on lesson design and what the expectation for learning and monitoring and checking up on students are.
And Lisa Worsham, in Long Beach, what steps have you taken to ensure that Common Core implementation supports English language learners and ELD students?
That's a tough concept to tackle right now. Let me back up just a little bit before I get into what we're doing with our English learners now. One of the things that we thought about as we entered into implementing the Common Core is what is the expectation going to be for our English learners. And very early on, we were fortunate enough to be involved in some training and working with Dr. Lillie Wong-Fillmore. And one of the things that we heard is that with Common Core, that you need to keep the expectation as high for your English learners and the kids that are struggling, that are reading below grade level. And that was a little bit different than maybe how we had approached this in the past with typically kids reading below grade level. They would get resources that are written at their grade level, or English learners perhaps were given a little bit of a different type of instruction and that sort of thing. So we weren't sure what it was going to look like because we didn't have the ELD standards yet. We hadn't studied the ELD standards yet about how they would blend together. So what we did is we approached it with it's a non-negotiable high expectation that the kids that are English learners below grade level, special need, whatever the case, you will also have the access to the high quality text that is going to be included in our new units. And the way that we'll have you, the kids will access it are through some of the different strategies that we've used in the past, such as we've spent a lot of time with linguistic frames. We have, our district is very involved in using the thinking maps and then even the path to proficiency, which is an extension of thinking maps for our English learners. The notion of close reads and repeated readings and using those kind of strategies. Another area that we focused on for our English learners, and I don't know that it was specifically for the English learners, and maybe I can turn this over a little bit to Maria because she's got a classroom full of English learners, but now I lost my train of thought. The idea of the collaborative conversations. So one of the things that we've done in our district is we have created rubrics of what does a collaborative conversation sound like, look like, feel like, what's happening in those collaborative conversations. So we've developed one at the K2 level and then also at the 3-5 level. And it is those collaborations that are unlocking and giving access to our English learners with the content. So just to give you an example, it's real simple in our units and our lessons. The kids read, they talk, they think, and they write. And so at the heart of every lesson is a good piece of complex text, and it's through those scaffolds and those repeated readings that it's really giving some access to the kids that building their language, giving them a purpose for using the language in their classrooms, and the emphasis on the collaborative discussions has been really powerful.
So to add on to that with the collaborative discussions, I think we worked really hard at establishing a collaborative culture and what a Common Core looks like in the classroom. And we have to use models with our English language learners. So with that collaborative writing rubric, what I did was I took a model of a group
having these discussions, and my whole class had the rubrics in front of us. And so that group, they were generally the kids that, would always participate. They were confident in leading. I had a leader that was confident in leading the group. But again, what I wanted to do was I wanted my whole class to see what a collaborative discussion looks like and how it pertains to the rubric. On that same day, we had the ELA office recording that same lesson in terms of, connecting what they're doing to the rubric. And it was so random. I mean, we picked our ELL students, we picked a discussion leader, and the kids really rose up to the occasion because the expectations are high. And the emphasis is on making sure you participate, making sure you're having this discussion so that you can add to the conversation, but also what's my third thought? But also show what you are learning. And so during this lesson, we had an example of JC, who was really like the discussion leader went to her and said, JC, what do you think? How does this text connect to our unit theme? And JC rose up to the occasion, and she, added her input. She cited her evidence from the text, and she was like, you can tell from the video, she was like really proud of herself. And after the ELA office left, she was like, I was really proud of myself. I didn't think I can do it, but I did it. And so what we're doing is we're getting the kids to have the confidence and to share what they're learning.
Lillian, if I remember correctly, you said that 60% of your students in Mountain View are English learners, so,
yes.
So this has to be at the center of your strategy, right?
It is. And we began an approach where we looked at the English learners throughout our city with our neighboring district and also our high school district. And looking at the data, realized that we had an issue with long-term English learners, students that were not making progress throughout the city. So we collaborated with Dr. Lori Olson, who of Rubric harm, and she has come in and worked with us in a two-pronged approach to develop a plan to intervene and support current long-term English learners, and also how to prevent long-term English learners. So I think I'll pass it on to who wants to talk about what we've been doing.
I can talk about it. So we began work with Dr. Olson and started off by reading Rubric harm, and it really emphasized the urgency in our district. And I think more than anything, district-wide or multi-district-wide, the urgency was there. And what we did is we started out by shadowing students and coming back and collecting data, and then going back out and shadowing students and analyzing that data and determining what exactly were individual students in the classroom doing. And we found everything from they never spoke. Yeah. They were engaged with social conversation with peers, but not with an adult in the classroom. And in presenting that data to staff, because unless you really go out and see it, you can say it, but it doesn't mean a lot. Because you feel like, no, I'm surfacing all the students in your class because that's all of our intention. But what it led to is we had a piggyback grant on top of that from the California Community Foundation, and we began working with our language arts and math teachers to look at what does ELD across the day in the middle school look like. Most of our teachers are core teachers, so they're math and science, language arts, history. So by choosing those two groups, we really emphasized prompts, frames. We are using programs or parts of programs like constructing meaning or systematic ELD in our schools, but how does that integrate into the core curriculum, and how do you ensure that students on a regular basis, every day in every subject area, get the use of structured academic language and the learning of English through the content areas. Another thing that we did is we adopted several common strategies that facilitate language use. We have what was mentioned earlier, interactive notebooks, but it's a structured process where there are Cornell notes taken to piggyback off the average strategies we've done. There's reflection, there's metacognitive strategies built in there where students have to go back and re-examine their learning and summarize and create table of contents. But in all of that, using models like 10-2, which is a very common model, but really emphasizing the need for it. So throughout the entire process of learning, students are given ample opportunity to discuss, use think, pair, share, but not just the regular elbow partner think, pair, share that, when I was in the classroom where I used. We have a very structured approach. Students are posed questions or comments. They have to write down what their thinking is. They have to listen and actually write down what their partner's thinking is. And then they have to come to consensus and share out and cite evidence from text or from their notes in order to support what they've done. But all of this really came together, starting with the work from Dr. Olson and a grant from the California Community Foundation, and we started at the middle school. Because the urgency was we're sending these students to high school and it's affecting their graduation rate. And that was really, when we looked at those numbers and we saw, what we were helping to contribute to by not addressing it strategically at the middle school level, it took about a year, and the entire school was working strongly and closely and monitoring those students.
Teachers want to say something.
Also, I would say at the elementary level, we adopted a two-pronged approach. We started looking at designated ELD time. So now at every school, there is a designated ELD time where students receive ELD instruction at their proficiency level. And in addition, all of the teacher leads just also happened to have been, well, not all of them. In addition to many of them were also EL liaisons. There's an EL liaison at each site, which is a liaison between the site and the ELD or ELL committee. So the focus on those strategies, of the language strategies needed to scaffold content instruction for all the EL learners also became a lens by which any kind of staff development that's being delivered is also being delivered behind that ELL lens. So that focus never goes away. Having to scaffold instruction, having to look at the cognitive processes and give students the frames needed to be able to work within the cognitive processes with the content standards, that is always at the forefront. So in all our staff development now, the lens is a language focus first with any strategy that is being taught or implemented. In addition to that, even at the elementary level, we saw the need to work with our LTELs starting in the 5th and 6th grade level. Now EL liaisons at each site will walk a 5th and 6th grade student through the redesignation process so that they are aware of what is needed from them in order to redesignate. So all our 5th and 6th graders now are aware of the process. That has also gone into parent conferencing, where parents are now made aware of the redesignation process so that they realize the urgency needed, because they need to redesignate as they're going, before we want them to redesignate before they go into the middle schools. Okay, but so that they are at least aware of what they need to do and what they need to accomplish. Because many times, especially as 5th and 6th graders, they're not really aware and they don't understand that they're not doing what they need to be doing. So by giving them that awareness, and also the parents, we've had a more empowering approach. We've empowered the students, and they now know what they need to get done. Not to mention the teachers have also taken on a better learning of what the redesignation process is and what is needed by each student in their classroom to avoid a higher LTEL population. We want to minimize that as much as possible.
I also think that something very important that Mrs. French tapped on earlier is that in our collaboration with Californians Together and Dr. Lori Olson, we were recommended the SEAL program for early prevention of LTELs, which is the Solano Early Academic Language Program. And our TKK and I think first grade teachers are really excited about the training they're going through this year to bring back a biliteracy program, as well as guided language acquisition strategies used throughout the day, so that not only are our students receiving the level-specific ELD time, but that academic language is scaffolded throughout the day through collaborative work, and we are never too young they're never too young to be introduced to that high academic content vocabulary. We also have guided language acquisition design trainers that work with refreshing our teachers who have pretty much all been trained in GLAD strategies in the past, so that that academic academic language is echoed throughout the day. We're seeing the urgency because we had the opportunity to participate in the shadowing of LTELs in 5th and 6th grade, and it was shocking, really shocking and devastating to see our 5th grade students who came to us in kindergarten that are only speaking maybe 2% of the day. And so as a teacher, having the opportunity to see that in a 5th grade classroom, I immediately went back and shared with kinder, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade colleagues that we need to provide language stems, not just during ELD time, not just during Think, Pair, Share time, but during our center rotations. When kids are working on standard-specific activities, they have little tents with sentence frames. Everywhere they go, there are sentence frames to scaffold them. They're on the walls, they're in their center activities, they're at the writing center, they're everywhere. We need to allow the kids to the opportunity to talk. Talking is learning, and it's critical in Mountain View. With 60% ELL and 95% low income, we have to ensure that they're given the opportunity, and that's what's so exciting about the Common Core. Because kids have to talk. Those are 21st century skills. They have to know how to collaborate, how to think creatively, how to go out and make those connections in the world to be successful, and college and career ready. So we're excited. This to us has been very liberating in Mountain View, to be able to allow our kids to just engage themselves in that high academic language, and to hear them on field trips talking about the perimeter of, a particular piece of work and engaging in this dialogue with docents at the museum is astounding. It's an exciting time in education, and glad to be a part of it.
I just wanted to tag on one more thing about just what you made me think of with inspiring kids to talk and that sort of thing, and then also with our relationship with the elementary or the supervision side of the house. In curriculum, we talked a lot about how it's so important for kids to talk. That translated to kids doing a lot of talking. And so now we're going on these walkthroughs, and great, that's what we're looking for. Kids are talking. And then it dawned on us, what are they talking about? And so we started this whole thing about what they're talking about should have great purpose. It should be about topics that are substantial. It should have the academic language. And that's really where we came up with the collaborative discussion rubric is what we're calling it. But it's really to focus on what's the purpose of the talking. Otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of kids talking in the classroom. And I think we kind of saw that initially, which obviously is the first step. You've got to get them talking. But it was a big an aha for all of us to know that, okay, what is the purpose of talking? To build knowledge, to have a more sophisticated language sentence structure. And so we're really starting to see that now as the next step.
And I think we've also are sharing that responsibility. We're leveraging some real high language strategies with all of our math teachers are using both math talks and number moves, as well as we also found that while we have a much smaller English learner population, it's definitely concentrated in middle school with long-term English learners. And so we have done some intensive training for our middle school teachers, not just in English language arts and math, but in health, in history, and in science around content literacy strategies and academic language. So we have a structure that we've used for 4 years at grades 4 and 5 of EL specialists that have pushed in and really accelerated our students at 4th and 5th grade, and we've seen great success. And so we're now moving those resources up to middle school to provide that extra support there.
Great. So one of the requirements for the use of the Common Core money, and one of the requirements in the local control funding formulas, is that these decisions be made in consultation with the community. And how have you, in Mountain View, how have you worked to engage the community in this process?
Well, we call it March Madness, what we've just experienced, and it's been very very collaborative, very enlightening, and really a wonderful process. What we chose to do was create an interactive input session that we have had every stakeholder that we can think of experience, from our teachers by school to our classified staff to our evening custodians, our parents, everyone. And we're going to continue the process even though we're starting to begin that writing of the LCAP as well. We also reached out to parents who were not able to come to meetings by having a survey, and we also have a student survey. But it has been such an amazing process because people have thanked us at every level for the opportunity to give input. And what's been fascinating is that the input has been very consistent, no matter which different group. So what we did is we had all these groups, we trained our cabinet to go out and do this type of interactive session where they were charting and doing gallery walks, and very much like a Common Core compatible strategy. Lots of talk, lots of sharing. And then we brought together all those charts and we created a data committee. And the data committee was three association designated teachers, 3 CSEA designated employees, and then 3 administrators. And they came together in a room to verify and to take notes and to create common themes. So, and we had 2 of those persons here, and that was Darin and Ray. And it was an amazing process. And so they developed these common themes, and last Saturday we presented them to the school board, who used those input to really adjust and reframe our mission, vision, core values, and really the board strategies, the board strategic goals. So the board strategic goals now reflect really our LCAP priorities, and from that we will take that information to create our LCAP plan. So it really was a collaborative process. I think the theme we heard is we want more time. So we're very excited about continuing this process and doing it in the future. I want to give a chance to let these gentlemen say anything in particular about that process.
Well, I would just echo the same sentiment. Mr. Andry and I were the administration who were a part of the data collection group. And what we did is we broke the group by association groups as well as other stakeholders, and we went through the data. And to go through that and to work side by side to verify and to look at themes was really electric in the room. Everyone involved was very excited about the process, and yes, as we looked for those common themes, they were definitely there. And through the 8 priority areas, you could see common themes in almost every area were almost identical, and really validates the direction that we were moving and will continue to move in. And again, being able to synthesize that information and share that out at a board meeting where the board could take a look at that information and see that where we're headed is on track. And so it was a really great experience. And being the first time of doing that, it was also very learning for both of us as well. So we did enjoy the learning opportunity.
And Jill, in Long Beach, how have you reached out to the community with this work?
A couple things I can think of, and then I'd love for Pamela to talk about engaging with college faculty in our community. But we have used a similar LCAP process over the last 6 months. Multiple stakeholders involved in narrowing down something like 10,000 data points into a cohesive page set of recommendations that really make sense in our community. I think in that process, something that emerged that was really meaningful to us when you think about college and career readiness and the skills that we want our students to leave with, is that process involved students, in particular high school students. And what really happened in the room at the LCAP meetings was that our students became the table facilitators and conversed with adults and led conversations and really gave a firsthand perspective about why the things that were being talked about as part of the LCAP planning were important to them as students in our district. And to me, that was a highlight to witness. Obviously, the adult conversation was important, but to see the alignment of those things come together was very special. Another uniqueness in our community has really been about college engagement. So, Pamela, would you?
Yeah. We have a long-standing seamless partnership with our neighboring community college, Long Beach City College, as well as Cal State Long Beach. And we've approached our work with Common Core with them with an eye to addressing the needs of our graduating students, the handoff that we will give when we have done our work with our seniors, as well as the students that those institutions are sending back to us as teachers in our district. So we are in our 4th year of our College Faculty Symposium, which is where staff from the Unified School District, as well as the City College and Cal State, come together to do collaborative study on the instructional shifts and the shifts in assessments that our students will be encountering with Common Core. So it's been a real learning together, as well as a sharing of resources. We're very excited that next month we'll be doing a study on performance tasks and actually taking the faculty from the 3 institutions through the experience of a real-world application-based performance task. We also have been working through our BITSA induction program, as well as some of the members of our curriculum staff teach the methods courses at Cal State Long Beach. The idea is that the majority of our teachers that come into our system go through preparation at Cal State Long Beach, and we want to be really thoughtful and deliberate in preparing them to come in equipped to teach in our system from the minute they hit the classroom.
Great. Okay, I have a lot more questions, but at this point, I'd like to open it to the floor if there are questions from you all that you'd like to pose either to Long Beach or to Mountain View. Yes, please.
I have a question with regards to the progress report. Is that K-12?
That's actually K-5 at this time.
Okay.
We've maintained our report cards or our grades at secondary, but not at elementary.
Yeah, and I've been asked if you would approach the microphone, then we can, or we can ask the panelists to repeat the question. So that probably.
Okay. So for that rubric for collaborative conversations, so impressive. I'm wondering, is that available on your website?
Can you repeat the question?
She's asking if the rubric that we have developed is on the website. I believe we have it on our internal website at this time, the intranet, but it's certainly something that we can share. A lot of the work that we researched several different, we looked up rubrics and we looked up discussion and speaking and listening. And one of the big influential factors into it, though, was the work from Jeff Zweers. Mm-hmm. He's out of Stanford and has done a lot. I want to say it right. Is it the academic?
It's collaborative.
Academic interactions or something like that. But we were able to listen to him speak, and he had a lot of great resources. So you'll kind of see pieces of all of that throughout it. But I guess we could put that on our. There wouldn't be any reason not to have it on the internet on our website.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, please. Yes.
What math pathway have you chosen for your high school code?
We're continuing with the tradition. The question was, what math sequence are we using, and we'll be following a traditional sequence.
The Almani Union High School District that we fit into is using an integrated approach, and so we're supporting that as well.
Is it integrated 1, 2, 3, or 4, or just whichever one?
It's integrated 1 through 4.
And what are you doing for your career technical education aspect of this for the students that don't want to go to college but want to go into a career? What is your Common Core structure for them?
Well, we don't distinguish. The question was about career technical education. And so our approach to career technical education is that we're preparing our students to be both college and career ready. And so you will see career tech educational courses in our district that are aligned to pathways We are a linked learning district, and those courses, many of them have UC approval. We have infused Common Core literacy strategies into all of those, as well as focusing on the math in those that are appropriate STEM CTE courses.
Considering I was one of those students who didn't realize I was going to go to college till my senior year, we kind of take the philosophy that every student has an opportunity because we're in K-8 district. At the middle school level, we've implemented Project Lead the Way, which is a nationally recognized STEM program to give them exploration opportunities at the middle school level. In addition, our local high schools have the same courses, and in a year or so, once they're certified, students will be able to earn college credit in those courses at the high school level. So even if they choose to go to a four-year university or a career technical path, they can go into one of our local colleges or any junior college with some credits with them. That also comes because we're part of the El Monte Promise. In El Monte, any student who graduates from a high school in the El Monte Union High School District, as long as they meet their A through G requirements, they get automatic admission to Cal State LA. They get priority registration their first year at Rio Hondo and Pasadena City College, and any students who graduate in the top 3% of their class get automatic admission to UC Irvine. So we are trying to look at the middle school level at offering things that are a wide variety so they can explore their interest and see education, no matter what that might be, post-high school as an option for them.
I'd like to add that this Friday we have a funders briefing and a signing ceremony that that formal partnership used to be just with the El Monte High School District, and now we recognize that the K-8 districts have to be an important part of that. So there will be a formal signing of the El Monte districts, El Monte City and ourselves, and El Monte Union and Rio Hondo, Cal State Los Angeles, and UC Irvine as formal partners. And one of the important parts of it is also to provide families with financial literacy and with funding opportunities, so that we're establishing a scholar savings program which begins in first grade. So at the end of their graduating year in high school, they will have a scholarship. Every student will have a scholarship that they can take with them to fund their college or career. Oh, can we add one more thing?
So obviously, this is a really near and dear to our hearts project, is that we start focusing on college and career for our kids. And part of that, as we've come together with multiple districts in our city, to really look at what are the milestones beginning at kindergarten. What do we do from kindergarten all the way through getting kids prepared for a college-going type of mindset. So again, this is, if you have the opportunity to look at that, it's quite the unique opportunity for kids in our city.
Yes, please.
What kinds of ways have you found to free up instructional time or fund extra instructional time for teachers to be able to take part in real meaningful professional development?
Okay, and please repeat the question.
So how have we been able to fund freeing up instructional time or professional development time? For the past 5 years, it's been a true challenge. And I've done it by establishing partnerships and grant writing, and anyone who is willing to come partner with us and fund. We have grants from Walmart. We have grants from the California Community Foundation. We have grants from Kaiser Permanente. We have grants from any number of sources, because it was really, truly challenging to fund professional development in such a difficult financial crisis, and difficult to be laying off people and funding that as well. So we did everything we could to find monies for that. And so the Common Core funding that came just at the right time, so that we were able to really gear up what we were doing.
If I could. And also, as we mentioned earlier, principals had all of the training a year prior to implementation with staff, so it really made us examine how we use our staff meeting time. So really, we became the facilitators of staff development in many ways. So that way, example, my site, we have one staff meeting a month, and we have 3 PD days a month, scaffolded between different departments, which allows them for professional learning time, as well as ongoing professional development. And it really helps to, when it emphasizes that this is what we do, and it also emphasizes that, we're not expecting you to get it in one shot. There's ongoing support throughout the year.
Okay. And in Long Beach?
We'll share a couple of things. One is that Pamela mentioned that a significant amount of money was deployed to school sites to do some sense making and have release time for their teachers. So while there's many aspects of our implementation that have been kept very tight and used in a trainer of trainer models, the money that went out to the sites that's Common Core money has allowed departments to have release time collaboration with or without their principal, has allowed district curriculum staff to go out to a school and work with a team of teachers that's trying to refine one specific area of their craft, has allowed to be, in addition to the 4 hours of required staff meeting time, has just really changed what the day looks like, including after-school paid planning time. So those resources have really, I think, been the loose part of our tight implementation. Is it's created some space for teachers and their principals to really converse and collaborate and plan for the use of these materials that have been so meaningful for our teachers.
And another aspect that you really hit on, the time within the school day for teachers to do this work is really critical. And we have been the very fortunate recipients of a grant from the Gates Foundation focusing on innovative professional development. And we have conceptualized that to be an augmentation of our very successful face-to-face professional development by using technology to leverage time and providing a professional learning management system where anyone in the system can access communities of practice, can access online professional development as either follow-up to something that was presented face-to-face or to extend the collaboration across districts, across sites, and can be done on demand. We've also just begun to engage in some work that's supported by the Gates Foundation around looking at master schedules and leveraging time using some pretty sophisticated software that's beyond my ability to explain, that takes into account all of the things that go into a master schedule and timing, and attempts to look at carving out time during the school day for teachers to either do face-to-face or use an innovative technology system.
Okay, we've now arrived at the most complicated part of the program, which is the break. So first of all, I'd like to thank our panelists.